I watched my brother Kevin accept another round of applause from our parents, and something inside me finally snapped into perfect crystalline clarity. "Kevin's promotion is such wonderful news," Mom gushed, refilling his wine glass for the third time while mine sat empty. "Senior Vice President at 34. We're so proud." Dad beamed from his recliner, raising his beer in a toast. "That's my boy. Always knew you had it in you, son." It was a typical Tuesday evening at my parents' house. No special occasion, just another impromptu dinner where Kevin had stopped by to share his latest success. I had been invited as an afterthought, as usual, when Mom realized they needed someone to help clean up afterward. Kevin shot me that familiar smirk across the dinner table. "Thanks, guys. It's been a long time coming." He turned to me with mock concern. "How's the teaching going, Jessica?" "Still dealing with those rowdy middle schoolers?" The condescension in his voice was so practiced, so effortless that our parents didn't even notice it anymore. To them, it probably sounded like genuine brotherly interest. "It's going well," I said quietly, not bothering to mention that I had just been nominated for Teacher of the Year, or that my innovative reading program had been adopted by 3 other schools in the district. There was no point. In this house, my accomplishments were background noise to Kevin's symphony of success. "That's nice, honey," Mom said absently, already turning back to Kevin. "Tell us more about the promotion. Will you get your own office?" I had heard this song before. We all had our roles in this family opera, and they had been cast long ago. Kevin was the golden child, the achiever, the one who could do no wrong. I was the reliable one, the helper, the one who showed up when needed but never quite deserved the spotlight. What they didn't know, what Kevin didn't know, was that his latest triumph was built on a foundation I had quietly constructed for him over the past 2 years. It started small, as these things always do. Kevin had been struggling at his previous job, making mistakes that were threatening his career. He had called me late one night, drunk and panicked, begging me to help him fix a presentation that could make or break his chances at the company. I had a master's degree in business that I'd earned while teaching full-time, something my family had barely acknowledged. But I also had skills Kevin desperately needed and was too proud to admit he lacked. So I helped him. I rewrote his presentation, polished his data analysis, and coached him through the delivery. When it succeeded beyond his wildest expectations, I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Not because he had succeeded, but because I had proven to myself that I was capable of more than anyone in my family realized. That single success led to another request, then another. Soon, Kevin was calling me every few weeks with urgent projects, strategic problems, and analytical challenges that were supposedly too complex for him to handle alone. Each time, he promised it would be the last time. Each time, he swore he would find a way to give me credit. He never did. Instead, Kevin built his reputation on work that I ghost-wrote from my tiny apartment after spending 10-hour days teaching 13-year-olds about literature and life. While he networked at expensive restaurants and played golf with executives, I was hunched over my laptop at midnight, solving the problems that made him look brilliant in morning meetings. The irony was perfect. My parents praised Kevin's intelligence and work ethic while dismissing my career as noble but unremarkable. They had no idea that their golden child's golden touch was actually their overlooked daughter's invisible hand. "The best part is the signing bonus," Kevin was saying, his voice slightly slurred from the wine. $50,000 just for joining the new team. Dad whistled low. $50,000, that's more than Jessica makes in a year teaching. The casual cruelty of the comment hit me like a physical blow, not because it was particularly harsh by their standards, but because it crystallized something I had been trying to ignore for months. They genuinely believed Kevin was superior to me in every measurable way. "Actually," I said, setting down my fork with deliberate precision, "I make $62,000 a year plus benefits, and that's for working 9 months out of the year." The table fell silent, not because my salary was impressive, but because I had dared to correct Dad's assumption. Kevin laughed first, breaking the tension. "Defensive much, Jess?" "I'm not being defensive. I'm being accurate. Mom jumped in with her peacemaker voice. Of course you are, honey. We know you work very hard. It's just different kinds of work, that's all. Different kinds of work. As if Kevin's success was based on superior intelligence and effort, while mine was simply the result of showing up and going through the motions. You're right, I said, standing up from the table. It is different. Kevin's work requires someone else to do the thinking for him. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Kevin's face flushed red. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at him directly for the first time all evening. It means exactly what you think it means. Jessica, Mom said sharply, that's enough. You're being rude. But I wasn't done. 2 years of suppressed resentment were crystallizing into perfect cold clarity. Kevin, remember that presentation you gave to the Morrison Group 2 years ago? The one that got you your last promotion? His eyes narrowed. What about it? I wrote it. Every slide, every analysis, every recommendation. You called me at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, crying because you were going to be fired, and I spent the entire weekend fixing your mess. Kevin's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's not... You helped me organize my thoughts, but... I wrote it, I repeated. Just like I wrote your quarterly reports for the past 18 months. Just like I designed your workflow optimization system. Just like I created the client retention strategy that your new company headhunted you for. Mom and Dad were staring at me as if I had started speaking in tongues. Jessica, what are you talking about? Dad asked. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. 2 years of correspondence with Kevin were organized neatly in a folder I had labeled Pro Bono Consulting. I scrolled to a message from 6 months ago and began reading aloud. Jess, I'm completely fucked. The client presentation is tomorrow and I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please look at this and make it not suck? I'll owe you forever. K. I scrolled to another message. Emergency again. I know I said last time was the last time, but I really need your help with this analysis. No one else can break down data like you can. You're a lifesaver. Kevin's face had gone from red to pale. Stop. But I wasn't stopping. I had been silent for too long. Jess, you're amazing. The presentation was a huge hit. The partners are talking about fast-tracking my promotion. I seriously couldn't have done this without you. I looked up from my phone. There are 47 emails like this, Kevin. 47 times you've asked me to save your career. And not once, not even once, have you mentioned my help to anyone else. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Mom finally found her voice. Kevin, is this true? Kevin looked around the table like a cornered animal. It's not. It's more complicated than she's making it sound. We collaborated. It was teamwork. Teamwork? I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut glass. Teamwork is when both people get credit. What we had was me doing your job while you took the applause. Dad was staring at Kevin with a confused expression. Son, did your sister really write your presentations? She helped. Did she write them? Yes or no? Kevin's jaw clenched. She contributed to them. I wrote them, I said flatly. Every word. And Kevin, I have copies of everything. Original drafts with timestamps, email chains, revision histories. If anyone ever wanted to verify the authorship of your work, it would be very easy to prove. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Kevin's eyes went wide. You wouldn't. I won't, I said. But I could. And that's something you're going to remember every time you sit in your new corner office, collecting praise for work you didn't do. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Mom called after me. Home. I have papers to grade. Real work to do. I drove home in a haze of adrenaline and vindication. For the first time in my adult life, I had spoken the truth about my family's golden child, and the truth had been devastating. My phone started ringing before I even got back to my apartment. Kevin, then Mom, then Dad, then Kevin again. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages started angry and escalated to panicked. Kevin. Jess, what the fuck was that? You can't just drop a bomb like that and leave. Call me back. Mom, Jessica, I don't understand what happened tonight. This isn't like you. Please call me so we can talk about this. Dad, your mother is very upset. I think you owe your brother an apology. Whatever's going on between you two, family comes first. Kevin again. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't give you credit. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry, but you can't threaten me like that. It's not fair. Not fair? Kevin thought it wasn't fair that I had leverage over him after 2 years of free labor. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, surrounded by the quiet dignity of my own space. For the first time in months, I felt completely peaceful. The next morning, I received a text from Kevin. We need to talk. Can you meet me for coffee? I ignored it. Over the following days, the messages from my family intensified. Mom tried guilt. I just don't understand why you would hurt your brother like this. He's always been so proud of you. Dad tried logic. Whatever Kevin did or didn't do, family loyalty should come first. Kevin tried bargaining. What do you want? Money? Recognition? Just tell me what it will take to fix this. But I had already moved beyond wanting anything from them. The revelation at dinner had been cathartic, but the real power was in what came after, the silence. For the first time in 2 years, my weekends were my own. No urgent calls from Kevin, no last-minute projects, no Sunday nights spent fixing his mistakes. I used the time to work on a novel I had started in graduate school but never finished. I took long walks. I called friends I had been too busy to see. 2 weeks after the dinner, I ran into Kevin at the grocery store. He looked haggard with dark circles under his eyes. Jess, thank God, we need to talk. No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm drowning at work without your help. The admission was so naked, so desperate that I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then maybe you should ask your new company for training, or hire a consultant, or figure out how to do the job they're paying you to do. You don't understand. The expectations are so high now. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of genius because of the work you did for me. I can't live up to it. That sounds like a you problem. Kevin grabbed my arm as I tried to walk past him. Mom and Dad think I'm a fraud now. They keep asking me questions about my work that I can't answer. They're starting to figure out that maybe I'm not as smart as they thought. I looked down at his hand on my arm until he released me. Good. Maybe they'll finally see you clearly. That's cruel, Jess, even for you. No, Kevin. Cruel is letting me do your work for 2 years while you collected all the credit. Cruel is making jokes about my salary while building your career on my expertise. Cruel is never once saying thank you, let alone acknowledging what I contributed to your success. I walked away, leaving him standing in the cereal aisle looking lost and small. That evening, Mom called. Her voice was different, less certain, more thoughtful. Jessica, I've been thinking about what you said at dinner. Have you? Kevin has been struggling lately. At work, I mean. He's been calling your father for advice on things that seem very basic, business things that we assumed he would know. I stayed silent. And I remembered something from when you were in graduate school. You used to talk about business strategy and data analysis, but we never really listened. We just assumed it was academic stuff that wouldn't matter in the real world. Still silent. I think maybe we underestimated you, and maybe we overestimated Kevin. It wasn't an apology, but it was closer to the truth than my mother had ever come before. Maybe, I said. Would you consider helping him again, just until he gets his footing? The request was so predictable that I almost laughed. Even now, even after everything, they wanted me to fix Kevin's problems. No, Mom, I'm done being Kevin's safety net. But he's your brother. Yes, he is. And if he wants to rebuild our relationship, he can start by taking responsibility for his own career. 3 months later, I received an unexpected email from Kevin's new supervisor at work. She had somehow tracked down my contact information and wanted to discuss a consulting opportunity. The email explained that Kevin had been struggling to meet expectations in his new role. During a performance review, he had finally admitted that much of his previous work had been collaborative efforts with his sister, who had extensive business training. Would I be interested in consulting for their company on a freelance basis? The hourly rate she quoted was 3 times what I made teaching. I stared at the email for a long time, considering my options. I could ignore it, letting Kevin sink or swim on his own. I could accept it, turning my hidden expertise into legitimate income. Or I could do something more interesting. I scheduled a call with Kevin's supervisor. I'd be happy to discuss consulting opportunities, I told her. But I should mention that any previous collaboration with Kevin was informal and uncompensated. If I were to work with your company, I would need proper credit and payment for my contributions. Of course, we believe in recognizing our consultants appropriately. And I would need Kevin's written acknowledgement of the work I did for him previously, so there's no confusion about the scope of my expertise. There was a pause. I think that could be arranged. 2 weeks later, I received a formal consulting contract worth more than my annual teaching salary. I also received a letter from Kevin, a real, handwritten letter, acknowledging the work I had done for him and apologizing for taking credit without giving recognition. The letter was clearly written under duress, probably at the insistence of his employer, but it was still the first time Kevin had ever admitted the truth in writing. I kept the letter and declined the consulting offer. By that point, I had already been approached by 2 other companies who had heard about my business expertise through professional networks. Word was spreading that the middle school teacher who tutored executives on weekends was available for legitimate consulting work. I started accepting projects that interested me, working with small businesses and nonprofits that couldn't afford big consulting firms but needed real expertise. My evenings and weekends filled up again, but this time with work that bore my name and paid fairly. 6 months after that dinner table confrontation, I was making more money part-time consulting than I did full-time teaching. My parents finally began asking about my work with genuine interest instead of polite dismissal. Kevin, meanwhile, had been quietly demoted at his new company. Not fired. His previous track record had bought him some grace, but moved to a role more suited to his actual abilities. His salary was still higher than mine, but the gap was narrowing. At our next family dinner, the dynamics had shifted completely. Dad asked me about my consulting projects. Mom mentioned my expertise to her friends. Kevin sat quietly, contributing little to the conversation. "I've been thinking," Mom said as we cleared the dishes, "maybe you should write a book about business consulting. You clearly have a gift for it." I almost laughed. The same woman who had dismissed my master's degree as impractical was now suggesting I monetize my expertise. "Maybe I will," I said. Later, as I was leaving, Kevin walked me to my car. "I know you probably hate me," he said. "I don't hate you, Kevin. I just don't respect you." He flinched. "Is there anything I can do to change that?" I thought about it honestly. You could start by succeeding at something on your own, without help, without shortcuts, without taking credit for other people's work. Just once, I'd like to see you earn something through your own effort. That's going to be hard. Most worthwhile things are. I drove home that night feeling something I had never experienced in my relationship with my family. Peace. Not the peace of surrender or acceptance, but the peace of balance restored. Kevin was no longer the golden child coasting on borrowed brilliance. I was no longer the invisible helper working in his shadow. We were both exactly what we had always been, 2 people with different strengths and weaknesses, trying to figure out how to succeed in the world. The difference was that now everyone could see the truth clearly. My revenge hadn't been dramatic or destructive. I hadn't sabotaged Kevin's career or publicly humiliated him. I had simply stopped propping him up and started speaking honestly about reality. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop doing the thing that hurts you. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is simply the truth, delivered at exactly the right moment. And sometimes the sweetest revenge is watching someone face the consequences of their own choices, while you finally get credit for your own achievements. Kevin would figure out how to succeed on his own terms, or he wouldn't. Either way, it was no longer my problem to solve. For the first time in my adult life, I was free to focus on my own potential instead of managing his limitations. And as it turned out, my potential was far greater than any of us had imagined. The golden child had fallen from his pedestal, but I had discovered something better than gold, the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing your own worth and the quiet satisfaction of watching the truth finally come to light.